Hi, and welcome to Racing with Remy. I'm your host, Remy, and today I'm here recording with both my mom, Sarah, and my dad, Jeremy.
Hello.
Okay, and so today we have the top 10 worst NASCAR crashes of the 2000s, and I'm going to have 6 honorable mentions in there as well. Just in case you didn't exactly notice, my dad is wearing his tee, which I'll leave a link in the description below.
Or you can find it on withmywifepod.com.
Yes, It's Racing with Remy. And on the back
it shows you where you could find
the podcast.
podcast.
But YouTube wasn't added yet.
YouTube wasn't added yet.
So we'll have to make additions to future shirts.
We're going to have to make an addition to future shirts so that YouTube is on there.
And while we're recording for YouTube, we are also recording for Spoon as well. So if you're on Spoon, check us out on there. We are... What's my Spoon handle? Is it With My Wife Pod?
I don't know what
I
your
think
Spoon
it
handle
is. I don't remember what my Spoon handle is. So, but I'll let you know.
I'm
all right.
more of a knife guy. Remy.
All right, top 10 races of the 2000s.
Top
Let's
10
go.
crashes.
Crashes, sorry.
So, number 10 is Ricky Rudd's 2000 crash at the Bud Shootout at Daytona, where he got turned in the wall. Well, I believe Bobby Labonte got turned by Ken Schrader, or he got loose with how they were right next to each other. The air underneath the car just got Bobby Labonte loose and sent him into Ricky Rudd, turning Ricky Rudd sideways right up in front of Ken Schrader, turning Ken Schrader sideways, and then Ricky Rudd hit the wall and turned over on his roof, one of the highest flips in NASCAR history.
I believe that was Ricky Rudd's first outing in the number 28 Texaco Haviland Ford for Robert Yates Racing, because he had been driving his own car he had owned for years up until then. So I think he had just made the switch because he's like, I can't be an owner and a driver.
Yeah.
So he went back to being a driver, just a driver.
Yeah.
And I believe that was like his first outing in the Bud Shootout, which is an exhibition race.
Yep. Pause for 1 second.
Number 9 is Scott Wimmer, 2005 Daytona 500. That one was scary, where he tumbled a couple of times. He actually, his wheels fell off. He was on his nose.
Yep.
And it was the big one as well.
Yeah, I believe he was driving the number 22 Caterpillar Dodge, from what you told me.
Yep. And my dad, I believe he was watching the race live when it happened.
I probably was, yes. Daytona 500, I probably was.
Number 8, Clint Boyer, 2007 Daytona 500, which I discussed a little bit in a previous episode, I think, but not too much. So here's what happened here. It was the big one. Cars were just wrecking all over. On the final lap, Kevin Harvick won. Congratulations to Kevin Harvick. And Clint Boyer got turned. Even Jeff Gordon was wrecking. Clint Boyer got turned upside down. Car was on fire, got back on his wheels, and he climbed out quickly.
Yes, the 07 flipped over in 07.
Was that just the Jack Daniels
That
one?
was the Jack Daniels car,
okay.
yeah.
This is the Jack Daniels car. All right.
I could use some Jack Daniels.
Okay. Number 7 is Michael McDowell's 2008 crash at Texas. And this one, every single time I see the hit, I'm still like, oof. Even though I've seen it on multiple different crash compilations, I know he's okay after it. I know he walked out, but I'm still like, oof, yeah.
Yeah, that happened in qualifying at Texas on a Friday. I went to the Busch Series race the next day on Saturday at Texas, and they showed that crash so many times on the big screen, just referencing what happened, giving everybody an update, letting them know he was okay. It was kind of a surreal moment. All right, what's next, buddy?
Next up, we have at number 6 was the Rocket Man, Ryan Newman's 2003 flip at the Daytona 500. So basically, Kenny Schrader got loose and got in the wall, causing him right next to him, causing him to get loose and get in the wall. And then the right rear tire falls off. He lifts off the ground, lands down, and it just digs in and rips it apart. He turned over like 4 or 5 times. The wheels were flying. And, yeah, I wouldn't say that's the worst ever Ryan Newman wreck of all time from his perspective, but I would say it's at number 2 on the worst Ryan Newman wrecks of all time.
Might have been Ryan Newman's worst wreck until Daytona last year.
Yeah. In 2020. Number 5.
Yeah, last year's Daytona Ryan Newman wreck was pretty scary.
Yes.
Yeah. Number 5, Joey Logano, 2009 at Dover. This one I first saw on a crash compilation without the audio. I originally thought it was Tony Stewart until I watched him climb out. Then I was like, oh, it's Joey Logano. And I didn't know that Joey Logano even drives the 20 car at all until I saw him climb out from that crash.
Yep.
Yeah, by the time you started watching racing, he'd moved over to the 22, but Joey Logano actually started in the 20.
Yeah, I think, yeah, he did, because I was at 2 years old. He moved over to the 22 in 2013, back when I was 2 years old.
Joey Logano, a native of Middletown, Connecticut, not far from where we live.
Yep. Number 4 is Kenny Schrader's 2003 crash, which I was wondering why I had it on. I just added it at last minute, I remembered. Because guess what happens? He gets loose, hits the rear end of the outside wall, flips over, gets onto his wheels, slides all around, and then is on fire.
Wow. I saw that.
Car is on fire. No. What's next, buddy?
Number 3 is Troy Williams' over-the-wall crash in 2002. So it started off with one car getting in trouble inside of the S's, and then everyone just stacked up. This was at Watkins Glen, and
I believe it was the Busch North Series, which is a minor league series.
And then Troy Williams just hit a couple of cars, turns over, and then goes over the wall, over the guardrail.
Yeah, that was pretty scary, too. Anytime a car does that, that's scary, huh, bud?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is the crash where Tony Stewart received a concussion after the crash happened. It was, you guessed it, 2001 Daytona 500. He gets spun out, but Ward Burton gets loose. I think Robbie Gordon gets into the back of Ward Burton, and with how light the cars is, the slightest tap can send someone spinning. And so got into Ward Burton. I don't think Ward Burton touches Tony Stewart, just barely misses the corner panel and goes sliding across, blocking the entire track. But that was just enough to get Stewart loose and turning him sideways into Robbie Gordon, which Robbie Gordon's hood helps lift Stewart up in the air. Stewart's side is on top of Robbie Gordon's car, and then he's flipping. He's getting hit while he's flipping. He's on fire. He's landing on other people's hoods, and while he's in mid-air, other cars are driving underneath his car. It was actually nothing.
And then he finally landed, and what happened?
And then he finally landed, racing side by side with his teammate Bobby Labonte, who he just landed on his hood.
Yeah.
Bobby Labonte's hood, and they were racing side by side. I think both of those cars were on fire.
Yeah, and that one gets overshadowed because of what happened later in that race with Dale Earnhardt.
Yep.
2001 Daytona 500. Of course, if you're a racing fan watching this, you know that's the race where Dale Earnhardt was tragically killed on the last corner of the race.
Yes.
But a plus about the last lap, though, was that Michael Waltrip won.
Yes.
Yes.
But before we get to number 1, let's go through your 6 honorable mentions.
Yep. So, my first honorable mention, which I also think is the worst of them, is Scott Rick's 2005 crash at Talladega. That was 1 hour after Michael Waltrip's crash at Talladega. He spun out, hit the wall, nearly head on, flipped over. That was one of the hardest hits in NASCAR history. And then he tumbled, landing on Robbie Gordon's number 31 circular car, I think, was the sponsor.
Yeah, circular was the singular, not circular, singular.
Singular Wireless. Yeah,
Singular
that was
Wireless.
something that stopped before you were born.
That was a cell phone provider that was bought out by AT&T.
Yeah, that was over before you
He
were born.
landed. So, my next honorable mention of what I think is worse is Steve Park's 2002 crash, which it was basically on the first lap. Rusty Wallace
What track?
at Pocono.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the first lap, which there tends to be crashes on the first lap at Pocono all the time. So basically the spotter thought that Rusty Wallace was clear, I think, when he actually wasn't clear, and just gets into Steve Park because it's hard for the spotters to tell where they are. It may look like they're clear when they actually aren't.
Yeah.
And just one call that's even the slightest bit off can lead into a crash that he thankfully that inside wall was steel instead of concrete, because if it was concrete at the rate and speed he hit and the fact that he didn't even slow down going through the wet grass, he would have been probably dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. The spotters.
He flipped over. That barrier gave way, and that was a good thing to see happen, and tumbled. He was okay. He had a concussion, though.
Yes, as I'm trying to say, the spotters have a hard time seeing all the way around the track. At the time, they only had one spotter, which you could only see, and it's a big, big track. It's a track that needs more than one spotter. I think they have more than one now. But it was the crash happened on the far side of the track, away from the spotters. So anyway, what else you got, bud?
So my next honorable mention is Bobby Labonte's 2001 Talladega crash, which he crashed on the final lap. I believe Bobby Hamilton was trying to pass him. They both got loose. Bobby Labonte hit and Bobby Hamilton both hit the wall. And then the track was blocked, and it was mayhem from there. Bobby Labonte flipped over a couple of times, landed back on his wheels.
Yeah, big wins happen a lot at Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Next up, we have Donnie Neuerberg's 2005 flip at Dover. It starts off with a couple of cars getting loose, and then Matt Kenseth hits hard. Then number 1 of Johnny Sauter, I believe, gets caught up, and then the track's blocked, and they're all scattering, and Donnie Neuerberg gets loose in the air, gets underneath the car, and flips him over.
Yeah, Donnie Neuerberg, that was a Busch Series race, which for newer fans might not know, since Busch is no longer the sponsor. That is now the Xfinity Series, which you see usually racing on Saturdays. What else you got?
I also have Eric Almirola's 2007 flip at Daytona. I think it's the second worst Eric Almirola crash of all time from his perspective of what he got. He literally just gets hit, flips over on his roof. He's on his roof for a while, but then he tumbles a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that was in a test session at the track.
Yeah.
It was not during a race or anything, but there were multiple cars on the track all testing. I think all of them were Joe Gibbs cars. All right, and then I think you got one more there?
Yep, and that's Tony Stewart's 2006 Talladega Busch Series crash. He thought there was a hole there, which it wasn't, which there's misreadings all the time at Talladega, and he just got spun out by that and just goes upside down and gets hit again as he hit the wall, but it wasn't intentional. The car had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Right. All right,
Yep.
so that's your honorable mentions. And now, number one, the worst crash of the 2000s, according to Remy.
Which is possibly the worst NASCAR crash of NASCAR history. No joke when I say this. Jeffrey Bodine 2000 Daytona 250.
The crash
Truck
from Truck
Series.
Series. Yep. So explain what happened there.
So, I explained it in a previous episode, so I'm going to make this one quick. So, basically, in case you haven't listened to my previous episode, what happens is a couple of cars get together. They get into Jeffrey Bodine. Bodine gets into the outside retaining wall, hits the catch fence, turns over. The car gets torn apart. Debris falls into the stands. I believe about 9 fans were injured, and he tumbled several times, and he had to get hit while he was tumbling too, and was on fire, and the motor was flying everywhere.
Yeah, that
Wow.
is a wild and crazy crash.
I've said
I
that
remember.
fans got hurt too, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so Remy, that was a recap there of the wildest and worst crashes of the 2000s, according to Remy, here on Racing with Remy. So next week is the Daytona 500. There is also the Bud Shootout and the Daytona Twin 125s or Dual 150s or whatever they're called now because they keep renaming races all the time. So we have races on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to recap. The big one, of course, being the Daytona 500.
Yep.
We will try to cover all of them in some way.
Yeah, we will cover Speed Weeks and the Daytona 500 next week. Speed Weeks is basically everything from the Bud Shootout, which isn't what it's currently named, which is tomorrow, actually, at the time that we are recording, to the Xfinity Series race at Daytona, the Daytona 300. And then the Daytona 500's separate, but they're all at the same track, so I'm just going to combine the Daytona 500 with all the other races in Speed Weeks.
Yep, so we'll record after the Daytona 500. Hopefully it does not get rained out on Sunday and pushed to Monday like it was last year, but if it is, we'll do our best, and maybe this goes up later on Tuesday if that's the case.
Yep.
But anyways.
So, Rem, do you want to tell them where they can, you want to take us home? Tell them where they can find us?
So you could find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and Pocket Casts. And you could also find us on YouTube if you go to YouTube and search With My Wife Pod. And
That's our YouTube channel.
That's it, yep.
Yep.
And what's our website?
And we have our website, withmywifepod.com.
And what can they find there?
And you could find our merch stuff. And also we're going to leave a link in the description for the merchandise because it's kind of tricky.
We can do
find.
that
Yeah,
too.
we will leave a link
So
in the
what
description.
did you create this week? What did you and I work together on to create this week in your merch shop? That's new.
We created mugs,
Yep.
masks, cell phone cases, and fanny packs.
And what do they say? And we didn't we do another shirt?
Yep.
Another Racing with Remy t-shirt?
Yeah.
Yep.
And you'll also find merchandise for our other podcasts there as well.
Caregiver Chronicles. I watched it with my wife and I listened with my wife. What else we got?
I think that's everything.
That's everything.
Right.
So tune in next week for Racing with Remy, where Remy recaps the Daytona 500. Check us out on withmywifepod.com. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the Racing with Remy podcast, you can reach out on withmywifepod@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to relay those questions, comments, and concerns to Remy. Also, or you can
Yes,
post in the comment section on YouTube. We ask that you keep it clean.
please. He's only 10, please.
Yeah, this is a family show. And also, that's it. And all the proceeds from the merch for Racing with Remy go to Remy's education in the future. So thank you all, and have a good week. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.